Yes, sir.
Let's go. Let's go. Welcome into the putback. Nolan Brooks, Jack McKinnon here with you for another episode 14 now. We're really starting to cook through these. We were off last week for good reason. Davinsky had to work, and I'm now a dad. So lots of things changing around. But we're happy to be back this week. Plenty to talk about across the NBA. Lots of things happening. Jack's got a lot to run through over this episode, so we will do our best to do it in a timely manner, but get you all the info. But until then, make sure to go check out stadiumrant.com. We got plenty of stuff going on. New website is launching soon. We're getting all of our stuff kind of moved around and transferred and all that fun stuff. So go check out stadiumrant.com for all of our written content. And then, of course, check out all of our original shows here on YouTube that we got going on all week long. And check out our team-centric podcast over on Spotify. So lots to listen to, lots to read. Go buy some merch. Lots of things to do here at Stadium Rant. But this is the putback, and this is the basketball show. So let's do basketball now. All right, Jack, take it away. We got a lot to talk about, and I'm excited about some of these things that you and I chatted about off air.
That we do. There has been a lot going on in the last week of NBA basketball. Probably the most, unexpected was Adam Silver's announcement of the NBA All-Star Game changing format this year. Obviously, the All-Star Game has been something that's been lacking in, excitement, competitive drive in recent years. So obviously what Silver's trying to accomplish is to bring some of that edge back to the game. So it's been broken up. The 24 selected All-Stars are going to be split into 3 teams of 8. And then we got the winner of the Rising Stars Challenge going to be competing with them in a semi-finals format. And then obviously the winners will head to the finals. What was your first thoughts when you heard the news?
Honestly, I was very surprised just because it feels like things are changing all the time with the NBA All-Star Game now. I mean, we thought when they introduced the new Kobe Bryant Award and then the target score thing, they were like, "Oh, that's going to stick. We're not going to move from that." Well, and that lasted about 3-4 years, and they've already kind of moved away from that. The whole what jerseys will they wear? This is probably the most fluid and most, I guess, moving piece All-Star game, I would say, across any of the major sports, and I'm fine with it. I think a tournament style is going to be good. It's a change up. It gives you more to kind of watch during All-Star weekend, just because it's like, all right, celebrity Friday night, dunk and 3-point contest the next night, and then All-Star game, and you just have 3 days and you know what it is. Now you have something a little bit more to look forward to as far as like at maybe actual competitive gameplay, if there's a reward for how these games will work and how these matchups will work. So just making it more fun. I'm all for it. Hopefully we'll see what the players can bring to the table and who goes where. Like playground recess basketball or something. I doubt it's like captains, but it could be fun.
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to split the teams. Obviously, they got three teams. So captains would be interesting if they got freedom. I loved when they did that in the drafts. When it was LeBron and KD or LeBron and Giannis, just picking it on national TV. That was just like, it was nostalgic, but it was just cool to watch. So I hope they do something like that. But as far as like, I know obviously it's got a lot of mixed reviews early on, the new change. I think Adam Silver has earned the benefit of the doubt in this case, because a lot of people criticized the NBA in-season tournament, when it first dropped, and now it's massive. And everyone loves it, So I think he's definitely in the benefit of the doubt. And yes, the All-Star game has been dead the last few years. With every year, it's fans saying, "You guys need to try harder. You need to play defense." But they're not really playing for anything, so you can see why they want to reserve themselves. They don't want to get injured on an All-Star game, But playing advance to a final of sorts, I think will give them a bit more of a competitive edge, especially because the games in those semifinals are only going to 40 points. So every bucket's going to count more. People are going to be locked in from the jump, and in the final, the 25 points is going to be an even better version of that. So yeah, I love it personally. I can't wait to see how it pans out. Obviously, All-Star Weekend's being held in San Francisco in Golden State, so Steph's going to be a big advocate for that. Hopefully, his team, whatever, I'm just going to assume he's an All-Star this year. Hopefully, his team makes the finals because that crowd is going to be locked in, and Steph Curry going for a 25-point win. So that was the first thing to talk about. Let's swing it back to the NBA regular season now. We're going to talk about Philadelphia. Obviously, had a team meeting, players only team meeting. We got JC here. Obviously, it's not looking good for you, my man. I'll tell you. They had a players only meeting and it got leaked. Paul George was just talking about they need to be more consistent. Honestly, you've played 8 games this year. You need to be more consistent. All right. He's talking about Jared McCain as our most consistent player. At the end of the day, it's true, which is shocking for a team that was supposed to compete for a championship this year. Yes, they've had a lot of injuries, but when you guys are playing, Embiid's played some games, Paul George has played some games. They have not been playing well, not nearly well enough. So, having a players meeting did really nothing for that team as far as I can tell. They're playing right now against the Brooklyn Nets. Tyrese Maxey's in the lineup back. Second game back after his injury. Paul George and Embiid still out. Paul George just suffered another injury, so he'll be out for a little while. You know how Embiid goes of playing games, you never know if he will. And yeah, I don't know what to make of Philly right now. Obviously, they've got the talent on their team when they're healthy to say, they'll bounce back. They'll make the playoffs, but I don't know. I don't know if they will. What do you think?
I don't think they will. With injuries being this prone this early on, and you and I talked about this a couple episodes ago as far as where teams sit in the standings, and if you drop enough games in a row early on, you really put yourself in a hole for most of the season. Now, granted, the East, and you and I have agreed on this, is a little different as far as the competitiveness. It's a little up and down, a little shaky. You could plug and play some teams at the top, and then they could drop a couple. Milwaukee was playing absolute garbage for a bit, and now they're up at the top. Philly has buried themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So it's tough. I mean, when Jared McCain is your best player and he jumps 10 points on his 2K rating, you're probably, which that's insane. You're probably not playing very good basketball. I mean, I was kind of looking at the box score, and I mean, once again, it's Jared McCain. That's their lifeline right now. I mean, Maxey's doing pretty decent, but yeah, this is a weird time just because coming into the season, the acquisition of Paul George, it was all right, Philly going and getting Paul George is then trying to take maybe another step towards being a serious contender in the NBA. And it feels like they've been cut off at the legs and they're just not there. JC with another, I'll put mine. Yeah, I mean, hey, at this rate, I would be happy for a number 1 pick. I mean, you could get Cooper Flag.
Yeah, just flip it completely on its head.
But yeah, it's a weird time for
I mean, they need a four.
Sixers.
Yeah, man. I mean, I honestly the Sixers have a good team outside of their big three. Their role players.
No, they really, yeah.
Unfortunately, they can't play like role players right now. But Caleb Martin, Kelly Oubre, obviously Jared McCain's just been great out of nowhere. That's another addition that you didn't even expect. But if your guys aren't healthy, which unfortunately for Philly has just been a story since Joel Embiid's been there, then you're not going to win a lot of games, or if you do, you're not going to go far in the playoffs, as we've seen. And that's JC saying that from a Sixers fan, his entire life savings. So you can tell even Philly fans don't believe in this team, and ain't nobody else believing them either, for good
No.
reason. Uh, Speaking of Philly, the Raptors. The Raptors are above Philly in the standings right now. They are, I think, 4-12. They just won last night in a crazy game against now I forget. But the Raptors, what they're doing is they're tanking on purpose, right? But they are good. Like they're fun to watch. RJ Barrett's been sensational this season. Davion Mitchell got traded from the Kings and is now more people are seeing what a defensive gun he is. Our boy Ocha Baji, he has been really good, very underrated this season at starting free guard for them. So I love what the Raptors have done so far. Yes, they're not going to win many games, but they are playing good games. They're playing close games. They've had like 5 OT games already this year, and they're losing them most of the time. That's what you want for a team that's not going to compete. You're going to get a high draft pick, and then bang, you're a couple years down the line, you still got Scotty Barnes. There's a top quality player in this league. He's just come back from injury, and they've got the pieces to make it work in the next few years. But the point is, they should not be better than Philadelphia, and Washington is better than Philadelphia. Their over under was 20 wins for the whole season. So yeah, they got a lot to sort out. Nick Nurse, I think Nick Nurse is a good coach, but he might be on the chopping block soon if things don't swing back the right way. Because it's looking terrible.
No, yeah, I mean, I love that the Raptors are going to play like a spoiler team type role. Because again, they've also, I mean, realistically, they could go on a run. I mean, they're 3 games back of being in a play-in spot. So, I mean, they could go on a run if they wanted to, if they could put it together. But at the same time, yeah, they are 4-12. And I love that you brought up the points per game increase from Ochai and Grady, and then Christian Brown, 3 Kansas Jayhawks on that list of biggest points increases. So I love to see that. But yeah, the big win over Minnesota last night, that was a big, huge win, mostly just because Minnesota probably should win that game. But mistakes late, missed shots late. It just seemed like their chemistry is not all the way there, I guess.
Yeah.
If that's how you want to put it. It's weird. Very, very strange. But yeah, the Raptors, they've got a good core. If they can, I mean, again, if they can put it together, they could really, really play spoiler. I mean, Grady Dick's got to score more than 9 points in a game consistently. But when you have your other role players doing good, I mean, Chris Boucher coming out of absolutely nowhere with 22, that'll help you. But yeah, this is a Raptors team that could play a little bit of spoiler if they can put the pieces together.
Chris Boucher, man. The Raptors have already played their 2 games against the Kings this year. Both games, he's hit 4+ threes, just sitting in that corner, chucking up them rainbows, and it annoys me to like a level I don't even want to get to. But
one other crazy thing that I read about that Toronto Minnesota game, Minnesota has now lost 20 games in a row up in Canada.
They haven't won since 2004.
Yeah, 20 in a row, and now they don't play them again until next year because obviously they're not in the same conference. Right. Yeah, 20 in a row that they have not managed to beat Toronto. And you think about you think about some of the Toronto teams, at least from the last couple of years, post Kawhi Leonard era, and Minnesota couldn't beat them once.
Even
So it's
those like
crazy.
early 2010s years, like when it was like young DeMar DeRozan,
Yep.
you weren't beating those teams. To be fair, Minnesota wasn't that good either, but
Oh no, they weren't.
you couldn't get one.
Couldn't get
So
one.
yeah, that's a sad record. But speaking of, talking about Minnesota, yeah, obviously the chemistry is the problem at the moment. Anthony Edwards was getting very mad at Rudy Gobert last night. And Rudy Gobert was getting very mad at Julius Randle. I don't know, we got Knicks fans in here right now, but I'm sure you understand what it's like having Julius Randle on your team, the issues he might cause, sort of his attitude. But honestly, I'm not putting down one on Julius Randle. He had the ball top of the key. Rudy Gobert was calling for it in the paint. He didn't give the pass, so Rudy Gobert sulks and stands in the key for another 5 seconds, walks out, gets called for 3 seconds, and then now it's all over the internet. I also saw this morning that Dante DiVincenzo will probably be available for trade come the deadline. He's only been there this season, so that'd be interesting. There's a lot of teams that could use a guy like Dante DiVincenzo, who has been not great in Minnesota so far. Again, just adjusting to that team. But I'd like to see Dante DiVincenzo get moved if Minnesota aren't really competing by the trade deadline.
Yeah, sure. That's it just is so weird because me, you, and Davinsky have all been very high on this Minnesota team. And we talked about, how in a way they improved pretty drastically by going out and making that trade for Randall and DiVincenzo. You add a good all around guard, and then you add a bit. You basically swap out big men. Now, granted, Cat is a bigger player down in the paint. A little bit better on the boards and all sides considered. But other than that, yeah, this trade, you expected it to work out pretty well. And granted, it's early, but yeah, 8-7 right now is that's not where they want to be. And I don't know why Rudy Gobert thinks he's the one that should get last shot, considering who else is on that team. I'm sorry, dude. You can only shoot in the paint and occasionally make some free throws. I know I'm sitting here in a house talking about who can and cannot shoot the ball, but
Right.
I mean, go look at the film. Rudy, you're not getting the ball in that possession any day of the week unless you get a putback. So it's annoying for them just because they got to deal with that, but they'll turn it around just because I think this coaching staff and this team recognizes if you don't turn it around, you're going to get lost down at the bottom of the West quickly. But we'll see. There's a lot of basketball left, and if they trade DiVincenzo away, then they'll definitely take a hit as far as their guard depth, which they need depth. That was one of their issues in past playoff runs. Is they ran out of gas with their starters. They got nobody to support the starters, and then they get beat late because they got to have guys to sit for a little bit. So we'll see what happens.
It's interesting. Minnesota and New York kind of both have failed to meet expectations after the trade. Obviously, Cat has been fantastic for New York, but they're still, probably not where they want to be win-wise, even though they are, I believe, third in the East right now. So, I mean, they're on the up for sure. They just had to get their chemistry together. It wasn't looking great early on.
Standings one more time for everybody.
So you see the 3 seed, you're like, oh, that's pretty good. 9-6 though for a team that was that was one of the best in the East last year, and then added Karl Anthony Towns, which most people I believe saw as a win for New York, because Julius Randle don't even play last year, so you're really just swapping out DiVincenzo for Cat, and of course you got Mikal Bridges, and that is the same off season. But you can see them starting to click right now. Those three wings, of Bridges, Anunoby, and Josh Hart. Those guys are fun to watch, man. Locking down the perimeter, chucking up threes. You know, this is what I imagined when I first saw the Bridges trade, just having a bunch of elite defensive two-way wings, and it's starting to work out for them. What was the other team? What's the other team I was just going to say? Milwaukee. Again, it was we said before earlier. They started off. It was bad. It was like 2-7. They've climbed their way back up to the play-in race. They're tied for the 8th seed right now. They're at 6-9. Giannis Antetokounmpo has been unbelievable in the last about 2 weeks or so. He's had 3 40-point games. Obviously, the 59-point game was one of those, and a couple 30-point triple doubles. He has been on a mission to get this team back into contention. Damian Lillard's been fighting through some injuries, but he came back and had a game winner the other night. That game-winning layup on, again, I forget who it is, but they're starting to pull it together too. The only thing I don't like Milwaukee, this is kind of their team when Dame and Giannis are healthy. For a team like Philly, at least, they're like, oh, we're injured, so we can be better. Milwaukee, you really can't. Like, they've got solid production out of AJ Green on their bench. They've got decent production out of Taurean Prince, but guys like DeLon Wright, Andre Jackson Jr., like if Bucks are going to compete, they have to be like championship level role players. As far as those role players that Golden State had in 2022, your Gary Paytons, Andrew Wiggins, and the Bucks don't have that right now. Obviously, Middleton's injured, but we're not gonna sit here and pretend Chris Middleton is still Chris Middleton from 2021. So yeah, the Bucks are still a concern for me, because they're winning games now, but they are close games. Like, they are just beating like the Wizards. They're just beating the Nets. I think they lost to the Nets actually. So yeah, they've got to find another gear. But Giannis has been absolutely insane this season. If the Bucks were even like just over 500 right now, I think it'd probably be at least number 2 in the MVP rankings, behind Jokic, of course, because that man is disgustingly good.
No, yeah. Giannis has had to be this level, and it's unfortunate because he does have Damian Lillard on his team. He has other guys on his team, like you said, some support roles that aren't doing their job. They're not supporting the superstar. I'll just kind of read this is in the last 7 days, starting on the 13th versus Detroit. Giannis had 59 points, 14 boards, 7 assists. So almost a triple-double. And then he followed that up with a triple-double, 22 points, 15 boards, 12 assists, 20 points, 13 boards, 4 assists, 8 turnovers, though, against Houston. And then Chicago, he had 41 points, 9 boards, 8 assists. So, he's doing everything right on his end, but then you go and you look at their schedule in those games. They won versus Chicago. They only won by a point versus Houston. And they lose a nail biter to the Hornets earlier or last Saturday. So it's weird. It really is, because this is another team that coming into the year with the roster that they had and the guys returning. If Chris Middleton's healthy, maybe it's a different conversation. But if they can continue to go on a run here, and just kind of scratch and claw their way until you can get Chris Middleton healthy again, get some of these other guys going, then yeah, absolutely, Milwaukee is nowhere close to out of it. There's 4 teams tied for the same spot right now, and then they're only a game out of realistically being in the playoffs and avoiding a play-in. So it's there. They just got to continue to put it together. They can't drop close games. But yeah, another one of those teams. You're just like, God, you could be so good, so good. You're just not doing it.
And
Again, I sit here in my living room talking about it, but
but it's like Milwaukee's been in a lot of close games, but honestly, everyone's been in a lot of close games. This has been the most entertaining NBA season in a while, regular season wise, early like October, November. Like there's a lot of games going to OT, a lot of games that are close within the last 3 minutes. This hasn't been many blowouts, and that is obviously awesome to watch because it's produced some game winners like Franz Wagner last night. Damian Lillard's won against Houston, so it's awesome to watch as NBA fans. Even teams like Charlotte, who no one expected to be really great, they're bringing out the best out of the good teams. And even last night they had a nail biter win against Detroit. So shout out to Brandon Miller because that boy is hooping. 8 threes last night, career high, 38 points. LaMelo Ball fouled out in the first second of overtime. He had, I believe, like 36 or something like that as well. 10 assists, double-double. But the Charlotte team, honestly, they've convinced me. I was hating on them earlier in the season. They are fun to watch, and they've got pieces, man. Musa Diabate, he played for the Clippers for a few years, barely played, 2-3 minutes a game, played about 8 games. He's playing 17 minutes a game so far this season. Last night he had 16 boards against Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart. Had at least 6 offensive boards from what I can remember. He was massive hustling for them, playing good defense, had a block and a couple of steals. He scored 1 point, on some Dennis Rodman shit. So that was cool to see. Obviously, they've got Miles Bridges was out last night, so that's why he was starting. And then both the normal rotation centers, Nick Richards and Mark Williams, are still out with their injuries. But it's good to see that he's getting some opportunity and playing well with it. So, yeah, but the East has become a lot more interesting since the first few weeks of the season because it was all about the West. Because Cleveland was just running through everybody, which they still are. They lost to Boston. It's Boston. You're going to lose to Boston every now and then. I think Cleveland still look excellent. That game against Boston, Darius Garland shot 3 for 21, and they only lost by like 5 points. 3 points. There you go.
Lost by a bucket.
So, that's just how close it was with their best player. Not their best player. Well, let me relax. With one of their best players, playing terribly. So I still think Cleveland's running it out east. Out west, Golden State are now the 1 seed, taking over from OKC. So obviously still very close, but man, Golden State are looking dangerous. I am loving what I'm seeing from Andrew Wiggins. He's really big, back to that 2021 type form, being a consistent second, third option. He's shooting almost a career high from 3 at 16, 17 points per game. So, and he's playing excellent ISO defense too on that wing. That Draymond Steph connection is always going to be great, but obviously Buddy Hield's out there firing threes, hitting them, and it's nostalgic. As a Kings fan, I don't like to see the Warriors win, but I can't help but enjoy their games because they are a fun team to watch with their ball movement and their transition rate. And Trace Jackson Davis is another name. He's been starting for them as of late, and he's been really fun to watch. He's been excellent on the defensive end for them too. Houston's another team that were up here last time we talked. They've started to slip a little bit, down to 11-5. Obviously, heartbreaking loss against Milwaukee when Sengun was wide open under the bucket with a second to go and just couldn't catch the ball. So that was mighty unfortunate for them, but they're still 11-5. The Lakers just lost last night. They were on 6 in a row before that, so they've jumped all the way up from like the 9 seed to the 4 seed. But out of these teams here, Western Conference, which ones are surprising you? Who should be higher? Who should be lower based on what you've thought early on?
just quickly, biggest surprise. Well, kind of. Phoenix has really dropped off. Now, granted, KD getting hurt and Bradley Beal getting hurt really, kind of derailed the momentum they were on. I mean, they'd only had 2 losses at one point. Now they're 9-7 and on the cusp of being in that play-in territory again. Very, very early. We're not even close to All-Star break. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of basketball left. But initial thoughts, yeah, Phoenix dropping is pretty crazy. But biggest surprise is definitely it. You mentioned them already. Is that Houston team being able to maintain kind of that upper 4 to 5 spots in the
Mm,
West? That's a sweet spot, man. That is being able to sit at 3 even is a good spot for them to be in. They've got a lot of young players. I know there were talks that Houston could maybe go after Giannis at the deadline, and Houston said we don't want to. We don't want to break up our core of young
mhm,
guys. We like what we got, and I love that. This is a project that they've been building for 3 to 4 years now, and it's kind of starting to really meld and take shape. A lot like Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City built up their draft picks, they stashed them away, traded some of those first round picks and the others that they garnered up, went and got guys like Alex Caruso and things like that. So, very similar process, just using those picks at the right time. And now Houston's sitting there in that third spot. But Golden State doesn't really surprise me because they've got Steph Curry and their coaching staff has really tried to hone in on what their team identity is now without Klay Thompson there.
mm.
And they got their hand forced when he left. You go out and you get Buddy Hield, who shoots the ball, I would say, better than Klay does right now. So did you really lose a lot? You lost veteran, or I wouldn't even say you lost a veteran experience because Buddy's a veteran by now. You lose the championship experience.
Yeah,
But if you can win games, uh, who really cares about that if you can continue to put it together? So,
right.
um, and I saw this graphic this morning. It said every time Kendrick Lamar puts out an album, the Warriors
Yeah,
win a championship, and they put. I mean, this shit's true,
tough
man.
album.
It's
Uh,
crazy because he put out an album this morning. So maybe it's destiny that another Golden State title run is on the way. I mean, if Steph Curry goes out on a pedestal with another title,
that would
I
be
mean, there's some all-time lists. He's already on a lot of them. There's some all-time lists that are going to adjust uh, quite a bit, I would say, if Steph Curry can add another title in the
oh yeah.
year where they said, "Oh, Clay's gone, he's not going to do anything," and here they are at the top of the West,
It's gonna be some
early.
uncomfortable
But
conversations. So.
yeah, there's some conversations that'll happen if they can maintain it. But yeah, lots of fun stuff going on here in the West. I'll put the standings up one more time for everybody. But um, yeah, competitive as hell in the West, not so competitive in the East, and lots of basketball to go.
It's interesting with Houston. Just to double back, I think the big reason, or one of the big reasons for their success this year is Alperen Sengun, who has been notably a pretty average defender in his young NBA career, has taken a leap defensively this year, which is so rare. In a center, especially a young center, he's taken a massive leap in his defensive impact this year. Last year he was averaging 6.3 contests at the rim. I think it's per 75 positions. This year he's up to 10.3. That's 4 more shots that he's contesting, and majority of those are going to result in a miss. And that's a massive leap. Like that doesn't sound huge, but that's actually incredible when you look at all the history of that ever happening.
Well, that's more possessions he's creating for the offense too. If he's
Exactly.
he's not necessarily blocking or stealing it, but he's making it more difficult per possession.
Yeah, and he's in the 85th percentile among bigs for like points saved at the rim. So he's right up there, in those defensive talks, which was so unbelievably unexpected. But it's been massive for them. Obviously, they've got some more defensive monsters on their team with Amen Thompson, who I love. Amen Thompson. I think he might be the best player on this team in 3 years. Even if he doesn't develop a jump shot, honestly, he's just so good. Tari Eason has been insanely good for them. Jalen Green is Jalen Green. He'll be good sometimes. He'll be awful sometimes. And Fred VanVleet's been up and down, but he's that city point guard that they need, and their team's looking great. Can't hate. Reed Shepherd hasn't got as much tick recently, because they don't need him to. So I like what they're doing in Houston. Will they sustain that level of defensive prowess? I don't know. But yeah, can't hate on it. The disappointing team for me out west is unfortunately the Kings. Now the last week or two, DeMar DeRozan's been out, Domantas Sabonis has been out, so it's been De'Aaron Fox against the world, and that's why we've seen him have the greatest week of his NBA career, averaging like 44 points per game over the last week. And yeah, I mean, they're 8-7, so they're tied with Minnesota. It looks bad because they're the 11th seed right now, but realistically, they're literally one game out of the 5 seed. That's how tight the West is. Denver at 8-5. So there's a bunch of teams in between them. I'm not sure if it was the 5 seed or not, but it's like at least 5-6 teams that are all within one and a half games of each other early on in the season still. So plenty of time for that to unravel. But it's awesome seeing how close and competitive all these games are. Even with the West versus East matchups. Yeah. So we can get into the segment I've got. Not that. My fault. All right.
I was going to say, you're talking about De'Aaron Fox. That's a pretty good little transition.
No.
Into,
So we've got a classic in NBA. It's player A versus player B. I'm going to read stats of 2 different players, and you tell me which one you would take based on their stats.
Okay.
All right. So your first player, he's averaging 14.9 points per game, 5.4 rebounds, and 4.8 assists. It's 15-5 to 5-ish, shooting 38% from the field and 28% from free. All right.
Okay.
Your second player is averaging 19 points per game, or 18.8, 6.5 rebounds, and 1.5 assists on 53% from the field and 47% from free.
I'm probably taking the better 3-point shooter just because that's what the NBA is nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't shoot the 3 ball, then your role and your usage kind of changes up quite a bit. But yeah, I probably go the better 3 ball shooter.
So the second guy, yeah. So your first player was Paul George, based on this season's stats. And your second player was Benedict Mathurin. Shout out Benedict Mathurin, man. He's been hooping this season. I hate to keep hating on Paul George because I do like Paul George, but 15 points per game on 38% shooting is disgusting. For a max contract player.
23% from 3. And he's slowly every year become known for his 3-point shooting. So
yeah. That one was pretty easy to decide. So I'll make it a bit harder. First player, he's averaging 23.3 points per game, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 49% from the field, and 48% from free. Second player is averaging 24 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists on 44% from the field, 34% from free.
I'm gonna go the second one just because they're getting more. I like that they're more active on rebounds and assists. More possessions, more scoring, doing a little bit more of everything.
4 assists more per game for the second guy. And yeah, another extra rebounds. About the same amount of points. Obviously, the first guy's shooting more efficiently, but yes, you get that playmaking with that second guy. But it's definitely close between those two. You have to say, like, they're neck and neck. And the first guy was Norman Powell, and the second guy was Devin Booker.
Okay.
It's just interesting to see, like, a guy like Norman Powell, who is a career 12-point per game scorer. We've seen him blossom this year with the Clippers.
Oh, and he had to.
Yeah, and he's adapted into that first scoring option role next to James Harden beautifully. He's out tonight, unfortunately, with injury against the Kings. Not unfortunately for me. I'm glad he's not playing.
Yeah.
But, yeah, he's been lighting it up to start the season.
And our boy Ochai said that Norman Powell is one of the hardest guys to guard.
Yeah,
that was who he named. So, I mean,
that's a good point.
Supporting his case there that Norm is quite the hooper. So,
all right, got 2 more. We got the first guy's averaging 17 points, 12 rebounds on 60% from the field. And the next guy's averaging 16 points, 9 rebounds, and 4 assists on 42% from the field.
Can you repeat the second one you were buffering for me?
Did I go through on that?
There you go. Now you're coming through. So 16 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, and then what was the shooting?
16 points, 4 assists on 42%.
What was the first guy again? One more time.
17 points, 12 rebounds on 60%.
I'll probably take the more efficient shooter with a little bit more rebounds just because maybe that means he's getting an offensive rebound here and there to create for other possessions. I'll take first guy.
But it's close. That's the whole point. That first guy is Jakob Poeltl, and the second guy is Bam Adebayo.
Okay.
It's interesting. These guys that have been all-stars for the last few years, back to back, and Jakob Poeltl has been hooping for Toronto, especially in the last week. He's on my fantasy team. He has been doing wonders for me. So you got one more. This is probably the closest one. You got 28.7 points, 5 rebounds, 6.3 assists, 50% field, and 33% from free. And then your second guy is 28.8 points, 5 rebounds, 5.7 assists. Basically the same counting numbers, 50% from the field, 35% from free.
That's tough. I'll probably go the first.
It's very identical. It's slightly better.
I'll probably go the first guy just to be safe. Yeah, I'll go first.
First guy was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who is number 2 in the MVP rankings right now.
I'll take that.
And the second guy was De'Aaron Fox.
Okay.
They're averaging Fox, basically the same.
Hey, De'Aaron is balling out, man.
Absolutely, man. I love to see it. So that transitions us into our player of the week. Did you wanna go first since you're already?
Yeah. And we've got we'll have a drop for this. It'll look a little bit cleaner as we get there. We'll put some music and it'll be an actual video of it. But Player of the Week, we've been talking about him already. He was named Player of the Week in the NBA, so I'm being a little vanilla here, but he balled out. De'Aaron Fox, 40.5 points per game, 7 assists on 57% shooting. Unfortunately, though, the Kings went 2-2 in that stretch in those 4 games. So could have been better there, but 40.5 points per game over 4 different games, man, that is hooping. And then to add on this almost 7.5 assists on top of that, that is next level stuff. I'll say this: De'Aaron Fox is one of the most exciting guards to go watch, like old Balls Life mixtapes from high school. That dude's high school mixtapes are absolutely insane. He's murdering kids on dunks after their entire day of school, and then they got to go get dunked on by De'Aaron Fox. So he one of the funnest mixtape guys from back in the day. But yeah, man, Player of the Week for me, De'Aaron Fox, absolutely.
And I loved it. And I went saw someone that wasn't getting a lot of love. You can see him there on the thumbnail. We're just talking about him, my boy Jakob Poeltl. He has had a sensational week for Toronto. Started off in Detroit, 25 points, 18 rebounds, 3 blocks. Next game, 35 points, 12 rebounds. Next game, 30 points, 15 rebounds. And last night he had 15 and 12. Probably the best scoring week of his NBA career. And he's averaging like 70 points on my fantasy team right now. So thank you, Jakob. We appreciate you over here. But yeah, and again, the Raptors haven't been great either in that stretch, but it's a guy that needs his recognition. Since he's been in the league in his first stint in Toronto, he's always been a very valuable and just like filled with effort. He's always a glue guy on the team. He's not going to score a lot of points except this week apparently, but he's going to do all the right things. He's going to play great defense at the rim, and he's another guy. If Toronto aren't in that play-in hunt at the end of the season, that will be on the trade block, and every contender wants a guy like Jakob Poeltl. Jakob Poeltl on the Lakers? Come on now. So, yeah, big shout out to him. That's my player of the week. Obviously, he wasn't the best player of the week, but I'm just giving out love. Franz Wagner's another guy. Obviously, he was the Eastern Conference player of the week, but he was sensational. It's not even counting last night. 37 and 12 assists against the Lakers plus a game winner. He's been absolutely hooping since Paolo got injured, and they're one of the best teams in the league right now over the last 6 or 7 games. Yeah, it's my guy.
All right. No, yeah, I mean he's one of those big men that kind of flies under the radar for a lot of people, and again, unfortunately, he plays for the Toronto Raptors. But he's absolutely insane right now. And the best part is they brought him in for that support role. Now, granted, he's on big time money. He's one of the big paid centers. He's making starter money. So to see him really start to kind of get back to that level is big time, especially in the rebounding department. Obviously, he's not a Karl Anthony Towns or a Miles Turner. He doesn't stretch the floor, doesn't shoot the 3 ball. He's a paint only type guy. But the fact that he can score at that clip with just the paint presence and add on the rebounding just shows you that he's really finding that switch. He's played at this level before. Injuries have plagued him quite a bit, but nonetheless, being able to play at this level right now is why you and I are confident that Toronto is a spoiler type team. They make games competitive. They make them close for no reason. And that just might be because Jakob Poeltl is getting extra offensive rebounds or extra blocks or points here and there that, the stat book might not point out big time because they ultimately have been losing, but nonetheless, it all counts the same. And yeah, I love that pick. Two guys, I'll throw the graphic up one more time. Two guys that are absolutely just balling out right now. And we'll see what happens. We'll see who is next week's player of the week. But yeah, two big time players, man.
That 35 points that Pirtle had against Boston is actually his career high, which was 28 previously. So definitely the highest scoring week of his career, considering he had another 30-point game in that stretch. Yeah, man, there's not enough I can say about those type of guys. Another guy that deserves mention is Jalen Williams. Obviously, Chet's been injured. He's been playing starting center, and he's been great. Honestly, OKC have adapted to the small ball. Isaiah Hartenstein's just come back, so they don't really need to anymore. Definitely not as much. But, 30 points, 38 and 7, 27, 10, 5, 5 steals, 27, 5 and 5 over the last week. So he's been balling out as well over on OKC, as you expect from them at this point, because they're one of the better teams in the league.
No, yeah, and that's Hardenstein was brought in for that role specifically. Being that paint presence that stretches the floor. But we saw him do that in New York, where he would get the ball at the top of the key, or top of the 3-point line, and then the offense can move around him because he does have that IQ and that passing ability. He got screwed the other night. He had two really good behind the back passes, and Oklahoma City could not score on either one of them. But it was it's good to see that he is getting back from injury and he's getting back into that role that OKC needs him to be in. Obviously he's going to have to try to maybe up in the scoring department right now with Chet Holmgren out for at least a month and a half still with the hip injury, the fracture in his hip. So they're going to need Hartenstein to be that guy right now, while the other support players are able to continue to try to win in big games, because it's them and Golden State right now at the top of the West. So whoever can continue to win big games here early on, I think, is going to be outside of maybe Cleveland and Boston, is going to be one of the favorites in the NBA, at least early on.
Can't disagree with that. As you say, that Boston's currently losing to Washington at halftime. But that's what I'm talking about, man. Every game has potential to be an upset. Yeah. So this is the NBA Cup that's going on right now, the in-season tournament. Celtics lost their first game to Atlanta, which was disgusting, honestly. And I think that was without Trae Young. There was a Dyson Daniels game. But that's what I mean, man. Every game is so competitive this year, and that's what I love to see. We've got 3 games that are going on right now. None of them they're all 2-point games right now. And we've got a couple games.
They're all close.
And that's what it's been, man, for the last few weeks, and it's just entertaining when it's back and forth. Makes it hard to put a parlay down, I'll tell you that. But
no, yeah, my money's not going anywhere near some of these over/under or win losses. I'm not taking it. Nope.
I'm not putting money line on anything at all, because this is not ending well.
Nope.
But yeah, man, I think that's about it.
All right. Well, yeah, NBA is in full bloom. Some of these, and one thing outside of NBA I want to talk about, just because we might bring up some college basketball here and there. Starting to get into these like November, December tournaments. This is a fun time because this is early on battles for some of these high ranked teams that get to see some good action before conference play. So this will be fun. KU and Duke, big ranked matchup is coming up this Tuesday. So Cooper Flagg playing Hunter Dickinson and KU. So it'll be a big matchup. But yeah, we'll talk about some college hoops here and there. But until then, yeah, man, NBA basketball's here. I'm happy. The soul is happy. And we'll see what happens. Cleveland's gonna be at the top of my list for a bit until I see them lose a few more games. So this is a fun time here in the NBA. Anything else that we want to add? I mean, quick shout out for your social medias, real quick, for the people so they know where to find you, and then we can close out the show.
It's all down there, man. You can go check it out. We got all my articles posted up on the Instagram highlights, all the podcast episodes if you want to go catch any of our previous stuff, and on X, on Twitter, just giving you daily content in and around the NBA. That's it.
All right. Yep. Go check out all of Jack's stuff. You can find me at capital NOL _ capital BOL. Of course, go check out stadiumrant.com for everything else that we got going on. This is a fun time. We're transitioning to our new website, like we said, so you'll have to go check that out over the next couple of days, over the weekend, maybe early next week, and check out all of our shows we got going on. We'll try to be here every Friday for you. Life's busy, and I have a new kid, so things are all over the place. But it's always good to talk NBA basketball as we progress further and further into the year. So check out everything else we got going on. And thank you for tuning in tonight. All 8 of you actively watching right now. Shout out to JC for commenting on the stream. I know he's a depressed Philly Sixers fan right now, but nonetheless, things will turn around. Just keep watching your Eagles, JC, and you'll be okay. They're doing a lot better, so keep your eyes on that. But nonetheless, thank you for tuning in to the show. We'll try and be back here next week. And man, basketball's here, and it's here to stay for a little while longer. Well, see y'all next week, man.